Are you ready? Cody's ready. Let's start the meeting. Lead us, Cody.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic and one nation under God, indivisible, with
Liberty and justice for all. David?
Yeah, let's have a moment of silence for all those who go in harm's way to protect us, our EMT, our police, our firemen, and certainly those. Thank you.
All right, as usual, this is a hybrid meeting. We have people on Zoom. So when a motion is made, the supervisors will ask questions first, comments then from people in the room, and finally from people on Zoom. The chairman's report, I want to say two things. Number one, we had a really good turnout for the Easter egg roll. And I thank Jason Lang especially for that. The kids seem to have a lot of fun anyway. And secondly, I wanted to, this is as good a time as any, Grant, the flower sales. What days and where?
Station 56.
Green Hill. All right.
So Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
9 to 6.
9 to
on
6,
Saturday.
Friday and Saturday.
All right, thank you. We have no emergency services report. No public hearings, no financial report. We don't have a minutes to approve, so we're into the treasurer's report. Who's going to do the treasurer's report?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll
Chris.
take that for you.
Okay.
So in your packet, you see the revenues and expenditures for the last 2 weeks in March. Some of the notable items are a solid EIT revenue. We had a lot of park and rec registrations and permit fees. You'll notice interest in all the funds is strong due to the interest rates. As of the March bank statements, Pliget is earning almost 5%, and M&T is still around 1%. And in the general fund, we had some expenditures for the defined contribution non-uniform pension and some advertisement costs for the ABC meetings. We have the spring newsletter that will be printed this time, so we had an expense for that. We had some bond renewals for Derek and Dave. And then we had some expenditures for lighting upgrades to LED within the township building. We did incur expense for the excavator that was removed from Milltown Dam. And as far as capital goes, we purchased a couple of lawnmowers. They were replacements and they're included in the fixed asset schedule. The ARPA fund had a couple of expenditures, 56,000 for stone and 290,000 was the first installment plan payment to the construction company for Hershey's Mill Estate sewer repair project. That's all I have for that. I do have a Portnoy update, but I can give that now or?
Go ahead.
Okay. So for the Portnoy update, the board had adopted that any account, sewer and refuse account that's 2 quarters behind in their sewer bill and trash bill will be turned over to collections. To date, we had turned over 263 accounts. And as of April 3rd, we had 128 of them pay in full for a 49% collection rate. But don't get too excited about that because probably before the end of this week, I'll be turning over 66 accounts to Portnoy So that's going to throw the percentage out of whack a little bit. Of those 66 accounts, we had 50 repeat offenders,
How many?
50
Really?
repeat offenders, and of those, 9 will be served with writ of seri fascis in the coming week or so from Portnoy. So we do have more statistics from Portnoy Law Firm that we're analyzing, and I'm sure Dave will give you an update on that at a future meeting.
In your experience, is that a lot more or less or?
Well,
That's a
since
figure.
Portnoy is new to us at East Goshen, we did reach out to them for some feedback and just asked if that's typical, the response, the collection rate. They don't really see anything unusual. That's what they've reported to us.
How about the extra 66 that you're sending out? Is that unusual?
No, I would say that's a little bit less than what I sent in February was the last one that we sent.
Okay.
Chris, can you just remind everybody how many bills you send out? And so with that small, it is a small percentage. just a-
So I send out almost 5,000 bills a
Right.
quarter.
So it does represent a very small number of residents who are not able to pay.
Right, but that also, those small number of residents takes most of the time,
Of course.
so.
The Hershey's Mill Estates, bill, 290,000 first installment. How many installments?
That I don't have the answer to. Derek, do you
Okay.
happen to know? No,
Okay.
Well, we know it's,
They're all in.
we have we have
It should be-
one
it should be 4
reading
pages.
probably gonna have into it, so, and engineering, we probably paid some against it, so, but there's some good pieces of change still due on it, but the good news is we learned with the original bid, was an excellent price compared to, what we thought it was gonna be, so I think there's gonna be some more, bills coming in for that, but the work is
Mhm.
essentially completed, which is great. So
Good.
we'll pay up. I'm sure she'll be looking. I'm sure it's due proper.
Mhm.
You have some?
Yeah, Derek and I had talked about page 5. Derek, we talked about the Ford Explorer.
Oh, yeah,
I had that down Expenses.
too.
So I was hoping that you could just kind of let people know what that was about there.
Yeah, so there was, and it's interesting because you can actually Google this, but Ford Explorers have a known, it's kind of known as a aluminum hood issue, which causes blistering and bubbling of the paint and then causes corrosion underneath and kind of really hinders the resale value. So this was happening on the 2019 Explorer. Originally, Mark tried to get it under warranty for Ford. Ford declined it as much as he tried. So we got it to a body shop in the area. And then it kind of added to insult to injury, but they took 3.5 weeks to do it because they had 2 people out with COVID at the shop. So it was there for about a month. So it wound up being the fact where I probably should have just, hindsight being 2020, dealt with the corrosion issue down the line because it was a little bit more expensive than we had hoped. But that is essentially the background. Is it helps the resale value if you correct it, but at the same time it's expensive to correct. And it was, again, it's kind of all over the internet. There tried to be a class action lawsuit brought up about it, but it was dismissed by a judge.
And you said
Um,
that you were still going to try to contact the insurance company
I am. I
to see
don't.
if they will cover any part of it.
I don't have a lot of hope for that. I
understand.
actually think I have maybe better leverage trying to talk to the company, the auto body place that took forever because of their employees being out, might be a better way to go. Because we did already approach Ford, which I don't think I told you about, but Mark informed me that after that. So, yeah.
Do we have any more angles with Ford, their regional sales or regional executive or anything that we can get to them more directly? I just,
Yeah, I mean, I definitely for now that the work's done, I don't know, for future reference, I think maybe that is a good way to go if we don't get from one dealership, but.
And there's, as we're looking at this report, right above that one on page 5, the Able Brothers removal, the excavator at 8150.
Is that?
We are going for
insurable?
insurance right
Yeah,
now.
so that's,
Yeah.
that was, I thought that was the case, but
Yeah.
that's good to hear.
Yeah.
Is, Chris, is the, I don't seem, I think I noticed it last period, but maybe I wasn't paying attention, but this new report, well, I'm looking at it, to me, as a new report is, for the bills paid here, purchase order listing by expenditure account. Is that a new report? Compared to the others, it looks different.
No, it's the same.
Because it I don't know, just read very easily, and I said, gee, I don't remember it was, it seemed to be.
Well, you know what, Mike, it could be a different format that I ran the report in. I thought it was the
think that's
same.
what it is. It was, the listing just seemed
think it's
to flow very
I think
nicely.
this Last one was the new, like a newer one.
Yeah.
This one is copy. This
Yeah.
new one.
Okay,
Okay, which one do you like better?
I like this one.
Easier to read.
This one?
Yeah, I like this one.
Okay,
Can't change it back now.
Yep, it's, this
well,
is what we
I'll
got.
make a note.
We
of
don't
it.
need a motion for that. We do
I'll
need
make-
a motion for the approval of. the
Okay.
treasurer's
Mr. Chairman, I
report.
move that we accept the receipts and approve the expenditures as presented in the expenditure registered and as summarized in the treasurer's report.
Thank you.
I second. that.
Thank you.
I just had one other quick
And I
thing
have,
to
I have a question
point out
too.
too. And Mark's not here, but on page 6, under materials and supplies for highways, the Flagger Force crew for $2,042.46.
You and I checked the same ones, Michelle.
Yeah, well, I went out that day and we only had 4 people out there for a while. And then while I was there, we had a 5th person that got out of the truck. And then finally, the 6th person got out of the truck. We needed 6 flaggers. We didn't have 6 flaggers the whole time. And I'm just curious if Mark was able to get that rate discounted. So I didn't get a chance to ask him that.
Yeah, I'll check with them.
I didn't want to bother him at the last
What are
second.
we
I
getting?
forgot.
Flagger Force?
Yeah, so
I mean, there's only a couple companies in the
Yeah.
area, so it's not many. It's not like we have
They're
a
the
lot
most
to pick from.
popular.
they weren't very
popular.
nice.
not like Ford where there's a few other places we can buy.
Yeah, no, there's one other company, but they're not as popular.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they weren't
Yeah.
very nice and they had mean things to say about me that were not correct and that's fine, but I wondered why we didn't have our 6 flaggers and I was adamant that we paid for 6, then we get 6, or we get the discounted rate. So what's it gonna be? So I was very adamant. I didn't argue with the guy. I just told Mark very loudly that, we better get 6.
Well, that wasn't nice. And Michelle, after we're the meeting, if you need a hug, I'm going to give it to you.
I should be fine. I should be fine. I should be fine. I have
Okay.
broad shoulders.
Okay, any other questions?
Yes,
about
I
the,
do.
I wanted to ask Chris, the interest, of course, is accruing nicely relative to, it's relative to the rest of the economy, but the total interest that I saw of all the funds was somewhere around 70K. And is that year to date, Chris, or was that just the last month period? I'm gonna guess it's year to date.
No, it's actually what's reported on,
Or just the 260, or whatever it was, 2-week
Mhm.
period or whatever?
Yep.
I mean, interest, it comes in typically monthly, right? So,
it's a monthly interest that's reported on here.
well, that's a lot
on
of
the
interest.
treasurer's
Good
report.
interest. And then the other one I wanted to ask, John, if I might ask Chris, I know we talked last meeting about the changing the signals at the park, the flasher, motion detected, if you will. And I think we said, well, we're gonna, we recognize that's a legitimate thing to do and let's get it done. Whatever the number was, 35,000. Have we looked at the budget so far to see where we might be able to accommodate that unbudgeted expense? And for instance, I'm still interested in the winter maintenance budget, even though we have November and December ahead of us. If we have some latitude there that we can reallocate from that. I don't know that we need a budget amendment per se, but
I just wanted to see if there was any update. And of course, Dave isn't here, so you guys may not have talked about it, but I'm interested to see if there's a place he's gonna pull it.
We'll get that reported to
Okay.
you next meeting. I'm not aware of where he plans on allocating the funds from.
I did talk to him briefly about it and there was like 3 or 4 ideas we had.
Okay, good.
But we
Alright.
can narrow it down with the board. discussion.
All right, excellent. All right.
And as far as the flagger force, if I could go back to that invoice, they actually billed us for 5 individuals. As far as I can tell on this invoice.
you.
2 for 8 hours, 2 for 7 3/4 hours, and 1 for 7.33 hours.
Okay, that sounds about right.
That's what,
I went back through that intersection later and made sure they were all there.
I have a brief question. Last report, we were kind of lagging behind on earned income tax. What does that look like this time? Are we catching up?
That's the same thing.
well, in this 2-week period, we recorded 80,000 in earned income.
And what's that look like versus like prior year, do you know?
I don't have that at my
Okay.
fingertips.
So we don't know if we're lagging or catching up.
Right,
or-
we'll find out.
Yeah.
But it's,
And get
but
back
it's
to you.
really,
It's that
next
time of
month,
year.
it's May and June is when
Yeah.
we get the big,
Right.
they're the spike months where it really comes in because of the, tax due and then processing it. So I think we ought to see some big numbers, before the second quarter's out, and hopefully it will put us back in good form.
Okay, thank you.
That's the questions from the board. How about people in the room? Okay, do I see a hand up on Zoom?
Yeah,
Go ahead, Russ.
Oh, it's Russ Franks. Hey,
yeah.
Frank.
Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Certainly.
Okay. Hey, Chris, I don't know if this question that I'm about to ask is too soon, but do you see a correlation between increasing the rates of these people that are delinquent go up as the rates go up?
No, Russ, to answer your question, the people who we turned over to Portnoy up through 2023 had been delinquent prior to the rates being increased.
Okay. Right, thanks.
No, I'm saying what we turned over. Yeah. No, so to answer his question, no, I don't believe that the rate increase has to do with the number of accounts. Right.
Okay. Oh, let me pick up on one thing relative to Portnoy and that, because you mentioned the writs that were going to be served. Does that, from what you know, Chris, and I can't recall from my experience with Portnoy, but does the writ then kind of trigger a conversation with the customer, with the resident and Portnoy to see if they can then do a payment plan? Or is that
Well,
it's gonna happen and you gotta just go through the process?
right.
I don't know whether you know that more
It's part of the process, and to date, Portnoy has reached out to individuals.
already.
These, yeah, the
Oh,
people
okay.
who are going to writ are those who haven't responded
Okay,
to their communications, and so the payment plan would have been offered prior to this. The writ is actually served by the sheriff,
yes,
so it's kind of the last
yeah.
step.
Well, that's unfortunate
Um,
because now they're in the system and that's too
Right.
bad that they didn't have a chance to respond. They could have just avoided that.
Does
Exactly.
that
bad.
writ create a lien on the property? Is that what-
Well, the lien has already been created
Okay,
on the property because of non-payment.
okay.
But
Well, the
then,
writ, is the
That's
writ
how legal
intended to
action.
perfect the lien?
That's how you execute them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But it takes a while to get to that
Depending on
point.
the officer, you can still have a conversation about it. Depends on what policy. It's that. Sorry. Entertaining any payment plans, but
Almost
Right.
everything can be settled at least before the electric is turned on.
Well,
Go on.
another point though,
All right.
another point regarding these people who are in arrears. My understanding was from what they told us when they came out initially, is that a lot of these repeat offenders, if you will, are oftentimes out-of-state owners of properties within the township and or some type of a holding company.
Mm,
And so a lot of times it's difficult to get
yeah.
to that owner. So I'd be curious to know how many of those situations we have in that number.
we do have a number of owners who are not residents. We have a few people who unfortunately have passed, so that has to go through a legal process.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So
But
there's a mix within that.
it's a
number.
variety.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Any other questions? No. We'll call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes 5-0. No business, new business. Derek, the 901 Sorrel Hill Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is the zoning hearing board application for 901 Sorrel Hill Drive. It is for a dimensional variance. I believe the zoning hearing board will hear this in a couple of weeks. Wayne, is that correct? The 12th. So it is here upon the board to decide if they want to remain neutral, be a party, or be in favor of the zoning hearing board application. The dimensional variance is for a pool setback, I believe, and if you see the last paragraph, it sort of goes over that Dwayne's memo. It's a 25-foot setback usual from pool water edge to any property line, requesting it to be 7.36 feet as far as the setback. And then it gives the total square footage of the pool and the decking. I believe there are representatives here from the party. Dwayne is here, so if there are any more technical questions on it, people are here to answer.
Let me jump in a little bit on this one, and hopefully the parties don't have to engage, but the planning commission looked at it, gave a good review. I was not at the meeting, but talked to Dwayne a little bit. The HOA had recommended, the HOA for Sorrel Hill had recommended that it was acceptable within the parameters of their homeowners association. So that's relevance. The way a suggested motion is listed here from the planning commission vis-a-vis Dwayne is that the board of supervisors in favor of the dimensional variance. I would offer to my colleagues, as we've done most often in the past, that we assume a neutral position and just let the zoning hearing board do their thing, if you will, and us not impose our thoughts on it, since we have no jurisdictional value in it, frankly, and the HOA has weighed in on it, as well as the planning commission. Let the zoning hearing board do their thing.
When is the zoning hearing board, their next meeting, do you know?
April 12th.
Okay, so it's only what, a week from now?
I have a quick question.
8 days.
The homeowners association owns the open space behind the property, is that correct?
That was my question
And
too.
that looks from the pictures to be kind of wetlands, so that, can that not be developed in the future ever? Okay, thank you.
So if this guy puts a pool back there, there's all kinds of room behind him that won't be built on, right? That's what I thought. Okay.
Okay, Derek, first of all, I don't see the zoning hearing board meeting on the list of meeting dates. And my concern is that this is something that they probably would like to start sooner rather than later. I'd like to know, maybe we can check the website and see what the date is, but and they've done their due diligence by getting all of their neighbors to agree to this.
Yeah.
And the HOA has agreed to it. It's not in the wetlands. It's just
Yeah.
adjacent to the wetlands.
We can get them on the calendar now. Historically, we've just never gotten ZHBs on the calendar because it's such a particular thing for one party usually.
Okay,
But we can start doing that. I don't have an issue.
all
with
right,
it.
so the plan is though that the meeting is gonna be next week.
Yeah, it was advertised.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
fine. I just
yeah.
don't want it to be delayed as well.
Yep.
We can't move it too fast.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay.
All
right, so
then I
Do you want a motion and vote on it, or should we take Mike's?
I'll offer a motion, if you will, and that would be, Mr. Chair.
Before you make that motion, if it passes zoning hearing board, does it have to come back to the supervisors?
No,
No.
Okay, thank
absolutely
you.
not.
Nope.
No. Mr. Chair, I'd move that we assume a position of neutrality with this dimensional variance for Frank Pets, Petrozello, I'm sorry, I'm a little slow there, for the in-ground pool with a 7.36 foot setback to the property line.
I'll second that.
Okay, questions? Questions in the room? Any questions on Zoom? All right, we'll call the question. All in favor of Mike's motion?
Aye.
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 Nay, I think we should have passed it tonight. It's,
4-1, we can't pass it.
I know,
We,
I know.
the zoning hearing board has
That's,
to
I
hear
know,
it.
that's my vote is nay.
Well, let me ask a question of that, Michelle. I don't understand with passing it. We have
Well-
no jurisdiction on it.
Sure we do.
No, we
Comes-
don't.
No, it's zoning hearing.
The matter is before the zoning hearing board is a quasi judicial body to hear these. We get the courtesy to hear what they're about through the planning commission. They come to us, but we don't have any approval. That's why the position could be either support or recommend.
Well, that's
Denial.
my position is, I think that we could have recommended this because he's already done his due diligence by getting all of the approvals.
Oh, I got that.
So
Now I got you.
I disagree with the way the board is
I
voting on
got
this tonight, because I think it should have been a simple
favor.
yes vote on that. It's very simple for me.
Derek, I have a question, and I'm still the younger guy on the board to this. Why does it even come to us?
It,
Courtesy.
yeah, it's a courtesy for board members to, well, first of all, because it actually is an important reason, because if there is and Mark can jump in here too, if you want, our new esteemed solicitor. But if there's something before the board that is a bigger public issue that the board may actually want to send our attorney for,
Okay.
then that is something that pops out rarely, but it could be an important leverage point for the board of supervisors. Now, I will say, the ZHB also goes to the planning commission for a review. That I don't agree with, but that's just the way it's been done here.
Okay.
But
That's helpful. Thanks. I just didn't.
And the one thing is with sending the attorney, if what typically will trigger that is if the board recommended a denial, typically, that you would have counsel attend to make, a case, at least the board be able to have the board's comments submitted to the zoning hearing board for consideration.
Or additional conditions that we might.
yeah.
To ask them to consider, yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Next.
All right, consider ordinance to allow for tax credit for both personal income and real estate taxes for qualified volunteered first responders.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So Dave Ware and I got together a little while ago, a few weeks ago, with Grant Everhart, who's in the room. So he is here as a resource as well, if there's any questions on these. But he had brought to our attention 2 ordinances that were particularly important to first responders in the area. Both of which has actually been passed by a neighboring township and is also being considered by other ones. And these are, simple ones, but really a good faith effort to try to at least get a little bit more volunteerism out there for our first responders. So the one, and I'm just going to tackle these together. But the one is a volunteer fire tax credit. So essentially, anybody living in East Goshen that is a volunteer first responder for these companies would get a property tax rebate as well as a personal income tax credit. I'm sorry, not rebate. So it would be for, the way it's written right now, would be for property tax and personal income tax. So that's the one piece of it. A resolution would have to be passed with that because it spells out the amounts. I did use the draft that West Goshen had and passed for that resolution. And so it's 500 each for each tax credit for the property and then for the personal income. And then the other one is being able to seek reimbursement for hazard abatement incidents. And this is essentially if, a company goes out and incurs costs of, emergency rescue tools, equipment, abatement tools, things of that nature, that they can go seek reimbursement from an insurance company, not the homeowner, but specifically the insurance company. I did work with Mark Thompson to put a draft together here. So we can tweak it. This is not up for passage tonight. These are both just for discussion. And then if you want to, we can make a motion to authorize for advertisement as well for one or both. That's up to you, but this is just for discussion purposes and seeing how the board feels. I don't think I've had an in-depth conversation with any of the 5 members on this, so eager to hear your points of view on it.
If I might kick it off, I think this is good stuff if we're going to try and continue to have as much volunteer first responder, firefighter, particularly in this age where there's been a real loss of volunteer firefighters in this area, particularly in this 5-county area. I heard you say, Derek, for both earned income tax and property tax, the credit of $500, would that be the $500 max?
It'd be 500 for each max.
But obviously, if their earned income doesn't come to that threshold, they wouldn't get just the $500. It would be something less. So it would be a credit up to a max of
Up to a
500.
max of 500.
Yes, okay. Pat, just for the sake of understanding what the number could be at the present time, do we have a sense, Grant, as to the number of volunteer firefighters who are residents in the township?
And can we ask Grant to come up, because I have a few questions too, and it'd be great if
Yeah.
everybody could hear your answers, please.
Thanks.
I think this is great. Yeah.
And I'm sorry, just a clarification, the earned income tax credit is a max of 500. The property tax portion is 100% of the taxpayer's municipal property tax.
Okay,
Which is
all
less than, which in a lot of cases less than.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's less than 500 for most, most all.
Right. Let Grant answer the question.
Sure. So I believe we sent some numbers to Dave.
You did.
Ware.
Yep.
And I don't have them in front of me, but we did pull a fairly tight number on the number of property owners. So the whole idea is that they have to own a domicile and inhabit that domicile in order to get the property. It wouldn't be for rental properties, things like that. It would be for the home they inhabit. So we have a pretty tight number on the number of homeowners, and we have a number of residents then that would then be entitled to the earned income tax credit.
Ballpark, how many do you think you have? We're not gonna hold you to it.
24 homeowners
Okay,
and something like 30 some residents or something.
Yes.
38 residents.
Wow, that's I'm pleased to hear the number on the side of volunteer. You know, I think from my standpoint, I'm very supportive of this. We have to recognize that it does add up to a couple of bucks that won't come into the coffers, but I think the cost of career firefighters, what would you say the average cost of a career firefighter is these days for us? If someone's been with us as a career firefighter for, say, 5 years, what do you think that annual cost is to the Goshen Fire Company?
Between 110, 125,000.
Okay. So, yeah.
this is cheaper, right?
Much cheaper. And
Let me ask a couple questions, if
Sure.
I may, procedural questions. First of all, are we gonna have any trouble doing this tax credit in light of the fact that we don't collect the taxes?
We just notified the county.
Yeah, we would
Is
just
Is that
notify.
easy to do?
I can make it easy because I can be the one to do it.
He's the manager. He can do
All right.
almost anything.
Says a former manager.
I have a couple questions.
so, just
Go ahead.
quickly for John's question. The other township that we're working with on this is working directly with Keystone. Keystone apparently has this in their system.
System already.
Good.
So
That's what I
it's-
want to hear. Good.
Basically, you would enroll East Goshen in that program and they would take.
And they pick it up and
Yeah.
it's on in their system.
Grant, the question I have is, I think this is a really great incentive, at least for even just retention.
Yeah.
And the West Goshen sample that we have for Good Fellowship Goshen and Westchester Fire Department actually enumerates on page 2 who a firefighter is, or who the volunteer, what criteria they meet. Are you amenable to the verbiage that's in that West Goshen?
Yes, we provided.
You provided this
that
verbiage to
West
them?
Goshen.
Okay, and to be clear, it's an earned income tax credit in an amount up to $500 per year. And entitled to a tax credit of up to 100% of the township's municipal property tax liability. So that's in addition to the $500. Is that correct then, Derek? That it's,
Yeah.
okay, all right, just making sure.
Yeah.
And you think there are about 38 people who are volunteers in our township?
Residents.
Residents.
And then there's a smaller number who are property owners. Homeowners.
Okay, and how many of them would qualify, do you think? 90%?
80 to 90%.
Okay.
Part of our assurance to West Goshen was that we would have a fairly high bar for
Yeah.
participation in order to qualify for
Yeah, I think that's
for us
great.
to certify them to you.
Mhm.
They have to meet pretty strict.
Would that include, Grant, something like you've had to been an active volunteer for, I don't know, 2-year residency, 3 years? How do you
No,
work?
there's no term to it. It's what have you done for us now sort of thing. If
Yeah.
in this year you perform at a high level, you participate in a certain number of calls, trainings, administrative functions that benefit, the running of the organization, then you would qualify in this year for that credit.
So I couldn't just apply to be a volunteer firefighter tomorrow and get the advantage of both those tax credits.
No, and I think the way West Goshen's is written, you have to perform at an active level for 9 months of the tax year.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, I think that's a
So,
good qualifier.
some people, for whatever reason, vacation, maternity leave,
Sure.
certain things,
Grant, out of the 24 people that was mentioned, do you think every one of them, in your estimation, would qualify right this second, or would you have to? I'm just curious about how many you think would actually
Well,
qualify.
it's not at least 90%. I mean, I would say all of them just for
Okay.
worst case scenario
Yeah.
calculations.
Mark, can I ask you, when we give these tax credits to the volunteer firemen, is that going to be income to them? We need a 1099 or something like that?
It's a good question. I don't think it's income. I don't think they'll have to pay tax on the rebate. No.
Okay.
I think that since the law specifically permits, based on their volunteer status.
Mark, can you turn your mic on for the people in Zoom land to hear you?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is.
Oh, now
now
it's, yeah. I thought-
I don't think they're gonna have to pay tax as if it were income.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Mark, I did find a technicality thing we have to work out in here, because under the definition of qualifying volunteer, it says meet section 7457. I think that's West Goshen section. So we just have to change it to, I think it's 211 dash something as far as the no tax exemption section for us.
And we'd have to import some of their definitions of what a volunteer is.
What page is that there?
It's just on the first page of the ordinance, second page in this. I don't know which copy of that. Under
That's the
qualifying
resolution.
on,
On the resolution.
no, on the actual ordinance.
While we search for that, Mr. Chairman, I am just going to go ahead and move to authorize the township manager and township solicitor advertise an ordinance to amend chapter 211, section 4 of the East Goshen Code to allow for earned income and real estate tax credit to qualifying volunteers.
Second,
All right, we had a motion. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I'll just make a comment that I view this as a short-term tax hit for a long-term problem that the entire state is facing with volunteerism and even PSATs has a whole curriculum on how to get volunteers, and it's a huge issue. And as Grant said, if we had to hire professionals, it's going to cost us 125 grand a year. So this is that is a great idea.
Good.
I have one other question, Mr. Chairman. Sorry, Grant. Has there ever been is it explored for those who may not actively participate in the EMS calls? Has it been explored for the other volunteers that, I don't know, may provide administrative support, or people who run the fair who may not be able to get on a fire truck or an ambulance?
So, so the program we set up with West Goshen does account for administrative staff.
Oh, I must miss.
That was in there too,
They said-
yeah.
The way I read it was like, or they have to do it.
And Grant, for the benefit of those that are listening and are here tonight,
This is-
presently, it go with Goshen Fire Company, presently, we have, is it 12 career firefighter at this point,
There were 12 full-time,
full-time?
and we have an assortment of about 40 part-timers, in terms of I think it works out to about 16 full-time equivalents
Okay.
in terms of what we're staffing.
And this, I would imagine if the board follows through and this is adopted, that it will be a good recruiting tool for your outreach to
Okay. That was confusing.
potential firefighters from the township.
Yeah,
correct?
it's just another tool in our toolbox.
Yeah,
What we're really seeing it, the reaction we got from our West Goshen members who live in West Goshen was very enthusiastic, very positive, and they know they have to meet certain call thresholds, response thresholds every
so
month.
that's kind of an incentive for them
Yeah.
to be active.
Yeah.
Yeah, good.
So we see it as a great retention tool.
Yeah, excellent.
Do we have any questions in the room? And on Zoom, I have a hand up.
So Russ Frank.
Go ahead, Russ.
I heard a lot of discussions on this, and I'm not saying I'm against it, but my big question is, just a few months ago, we went through this long process of this budget and why we needed to raise certain tax rates on the residents. And yet here we are, 2 months down the road, now we're finding ways to give money back. It just doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I understand what you're trying to do, and I'm not saying I'm against it, but why did you guys know about this in December that you were going to come through with this?
I'm gonna say no.
No, I just brought it to the board today after a discussion we had with Grant, I think last month, and we were discussing their 2023 initiatives. So no, the board wasn't aware that I was going to bring this up until tonight or when they got their packet.
And volunteerism is dwindling everywhere. I'm volunteering at church this week and I have to get to a practice tonight. And it's just the volunteerism numbers are just dropping like lead bricks. They're just, we have to do something to incentivize people to want to provide service to our community.
So then
Well said.
my last little question is, when you talk about volunteers for the fire, is that, how far down the chain does that volunteer job take a benefit of these things? Like the guy that goes out there and puts the flag up, don't drive down this street, go down that street. Are they called what, the fire police? Is that the correct term?
That's correct.
Would they be, is that part of this program as well?
Yes, all of our active crew members, fire, EMS and fire police would be part of this program.
And then the definitions of how you qualify is in the, going to be in a future packet?
It will
Yeah,
be an
yes.
ordinance,
Yeah.
yes.
What we're doing now, Russ, is just authorizing the advertisement. We
Okay.
will deal with this again.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks again for listening to me.
Thank you, Russ. Any other questions? I'll call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
5-0.
thank you.
Thank you.
Don't go anywhere, Grant. So the second one on the docket, we do have this reimbursement for hazardous abatement instances. And I will I'll throw it right over to you, Grant, because you understand this better than I do as far as what is trying to be accomplished here through this ordinance.
So, there's an opportunity, for when we respond to certain kinds of calls to, recover our costs through the billing of insurance companies, vehicle accidents, vehicle fires, house fires, things like that. There's a number of fire companies around us that are currently doing it. It's, it's not something that, has a huge return, but it offsets things like fuel costs and things like that. Paoli Fire Company has been doing it for a while. The process is to use a third-party billing service. What they do is monthly, they'll go in and they'll look at our fire reports. They'll look for any type of incident that meets, any type of call. So we in advance set the standard for which calls we would bill for, which calls we wouldn't bill for. They go and they look for those calls, they pull them in. And for example, if it's a vehicle accident, we do cleanup, spilled gasoline and oil, things like that. We use our supplies, those kinds of things. There's a billing schedule that go down. If you use, 2 bags of oil dry, here's the cost for it. If we perform an extrication at an accident with entrapment, there's a set fee for that. All these things are in a billing schedule. They then go to the insurance company. There's no, they do not go after the homeowner. They don't go after the vehicle owner, things like that. It's all interactions with the insurance company. And it's really just cost recovery. It's one way to offset our cost of operations. We fundraise, the municipalities are very supportive of us. But it's just another way for us to find an income stream to help.
Sounds like a good idea, Grant. What, does it cost money? Do
They take a percentage.
a percentage of what they collect?
Yes.
Okay.
Percentage of what they collect.
Interesting issue, from an insurance perspective. I'm thinking like homeowner supplemental cover and auto coverage, supplemental coverage, and do they actually have a sub limit for this type of thing? Because, depending on if it's a third party accident or a first party accident,
Right.
or a homeowner's, I don't, they pay to rebuild your house, but I don't know if there's supplemental coverage for response. I was just curious how
So-
successful have the program's been at going after the insurance companies if there's no written supplemental coverage in the policies for that type of
Apparently,
loss for the homeowner.
He's very successful at it. He's made quite a business, helping fire companies with this process. Most homeowner policies have at least a $500 fire department service fee. He would just max that out. If the bill was 300, he'd get 300, but if the bill was 1,000, he'd get 500. He'd get whatever the maximum on that policy.
So Paoli Fire Company feels that this has been a
Yeah.
beneficial recovery of costs
Yeah.
and irrespective of the commission, if you will, to collect that.
Yeah, the only
Great.
time in my memory that we've ever billed somebody was the mulch truck fire up. on Green Hill Road. And we had hose that was ruined, we had gear that was ruined, there was hydraulic fluid everywhere. And that insurance company actually worked with us. They were suggesting things for us to bill for. And so we recovered the cost, what it cost us.
Seems like a no-brainer to me.
My last question is how much revenue do you think, how much revenue do you guys think you're missing out on, like
So,
previously?
we looked at some numbers for West Goshen, for example, last year, under the types of calls we would bill for, there was 26 calls in West Goshen last year.
Okay.
Probably twice that for East Goshen Township, say 50.
Okay.
If we got $500 per
Yeah.
call.
Every dollar counts.
Yeah.
And because of that, I'd like to make a chairman, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move, we authorize the township manager and township solicitor to advertise an ordinance recognizing the authority of the volunteer fire companies to seek reimbursement from insurance companies for hazardous abatement incidents, environmental incidents, and fire safety and rescue responses.
Sounds like
Yeah.
I'm sorry for that motion, Cody. I wrote that.
It's been David seconded that?
Second?
No,
I
it's-
second.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Cody. Questions in the room? Questions on Zoom? I don't see any hands up. I'll call the question then. All in favor?
Aye.
Enthusiastically, yes.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Grant.
Thank you, Grant. That's true.
5-0.
That's a terrific idea. I love that. And I saw you looking right at me because we've been at too many accident scenes together.
Hey, Grant, I have a side question relative to the flower sale. Is it both annuals that you're selling or do you sell perennials as well? That my wife asked me to ask that
If I had to estimate, I'd say 75% annuals, but we throw in things like rhododendrons and, small azaleas.
whole little potted plants and
Yeah,
stuff. Okay, good. All right. Thanks.
Thank you.
Do you accept credit? No, I'm only kidding. Oh, you do? Oh, good grief. I was only kidding.
Okay, we move on to the stormwater O and M agreement for 1151 North Chester Road.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board authorize the chair to sign stormwater management operation and maintenance agreement for the new addition located at 330 Springhouse Lane.
No, that, the first one was 1151 North Chester Road.
My mistake. Correct the record to say 1151 North Chester Road. I guess I got it mixed up in the,
The top one is.
No, they were different in the
330.
packet.
Would you
Switched
accept
to-
the friendly amendment to put both of them into the motion?
I would love that.
Because since these are recommended by the staff and we believe the staff has done their due diligence.
Yes.
These are pretty straightforward, so if we could.
Due diligence.
Yep. I agree with that. Thank you.
All right, questions on the board? Questions in the room? On Zoom? No questions? Call the question.
Aye.
All in favor? Aye. Passes 5-0. Both of them. All right, next is the change of date or cancellation of the May 16 and July 4th board meetings.
Whatever you guys decide.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we cancel both the May 16th and July 4th. Obviously, July 4th is Independence Day, but for May 16th, other than it's the primary election day, if we were able to move it a week before, a week after, it still makes the following or the one before the agenda shorter, and I don't see a need for it. And I talked with Derek today and he said it would not hurt him administratively or the township in regards for matters. So
Ooh. I was gonna say,
so you want a meeting?
oh, you want another meeting?
I made a motion.
Cancel both? And I was just gonna second that.
Unless you want to come and hang out on
We have so many more
Oh,
meetings.
Thank God. Oh, I started.
Let's book a few extra in September.
Let's cancel the rest of the
Let's
year.
book a few in September for you.
Yeah, we'll just play golf.
We gotta pay bills. All right, did you make a motion?
Yeah.
Yes, and I
Okay,
second.
and second.
Mhm.
Discussion, anybody in the room, on Zoom? All right, the question is, shall we cancel those meetings? Call a question, all in favor?
Aye.
It passes 5-0.
This could be the quickest one ever.
Okay, and tree pruning and tree removal bid.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we did go out for a tree pruning and tree removal bid. We do a lot ourselves, but there is just too many to get to, and we do have to supplement with a company now and then. So we received 2 bids, Travis Orner Tree Services in the amount of $29,300 and Joseph S. McElvain Tree and Lawn Service for the amount of $37,195. Sorry, I'm still on vacation mode.
Thank you.
So that Mark did review the bids. They were both fine, both done correctly. So he is recommending Travis Orner Tree Services in the amount of $29,300.
Has he had any experience with Travis or got any recommendations?
He has, yeah,
Okay.
started
He's
using
done 5 trees in my
Yep.
backyard and he did really
Yep.
nice work and they did good cleanup and they were easy
Yeah.
to work with. So
Yep.
Well, and
I,
you can't vote then.
no,
You
the
can't-
the township didn't pay for the removal of those 5 trees. I did, so, and he was fair with his pricing as well. The question I have is this for a specific number of trees or is it just a blanket contract for how many trees we decide to have them do or?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I didn't,
Yeah, they base it on, bases on the amount like per hour, how much, and then they basically, they take how much they think they're gonna, based on last year and the year before.
So we're not committed to 29.
No, it could be less, it could be more depending on the, so
Yeah,
But
it's
the
just a
quote-
rate.
it's just to get the bid,
but
yeah,
the quotes were apples to apples as
Yeah,
far as
yep.
the hours
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
cost and everything. Okay,
correct,
thank you.
yes.
By the way, I think one of the issues was referenced that the Public Works does a lot of tree work directly, is I know they were in our neighborhood this past week. But I think they don't have the insurance coverage to climb trees, correct? They can only, I don't think they climb, and I think there's an additional insurance for that, if I'm not
Well,
mistaken.
you want to know what they do or what we're insured for?
Oh,
No, I'm just
that's-
kidding.
On that note, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we award the bid to Travis Horner Tree Services in the amount up to 29,300.
Second.
But to your point, Mike, there's some dangerous situations where we can't get involved in. So that's correct. In all seriousness.
Okay,
Are there any questions about this bid in the room, on Zoom? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 5-0.
And this is a budget item.
I believe it is, yes. Here,
Yeah, I don't have any more paper in front of me. Does that
this
mean
is-
something?
this was done a long time ago.
it
But it's
means,
I have a,
2023.
I just have one other matter that I'd like to talk about. So are you gonna do the Milltown Dam project?
You could go first if you want.
Just under other matter, I just want to make the board and people on that pay attention to our meeting aware that we had a swatting incident at the Palp School this past week. Those who are not familiar with swatting, people call in to the school or the police department saying that there's an active shooter in the school. Many times they actually hijack students or faculty cell phones, so it looked like a legitimate call coming in. So we actually had the police respond to the Palp School on Piddly Pike. You know, officers through the hallway, clearing. There were 5 schools in Bucks County on the same day that had swatting events, and it was a widespread Pennsylvania issue. So I just want to make everyone aware that that happened. Police responded immediately, cleared the school, everything, the school protocol was followed. There was a lockdown of the students, so it was handled really well. So I just want to make everyone aware of that.
Kudos to the police department then.
Yep.
any other matter I have, just gonna state real quickly, that, all of you who normally are in the room or on our Zoom have probably noticed that Dave is not here this evening, Dave Ware. And it's because our thoughts, and hearts are with him and his family as they deal with the loss of his father today.
Yeah.
So we want to just let you know that one of ours has lost one of their own, and we were thinking of him.
Very good.
All right, let's get back to standing issues.
Thank
Where are we in the projects here?
So Milltown Dam project, I did, as soon as I got back on Monday morning, touch base with Mark Hansford at DCNR. They have everything they need. So he said in the next couple of weeks, he's hoping they can get the final sign off. And shortly after that, I think we can go out to bid. So because they're simultaneously doing that in the bid this time. So I'm hopeful I can, as soon as I get the sign off, I can turn around to Eric Neist, who is the Gannett Fleming project manager, and say, let's go, let's get it out to bid. Obviously, the bidding process is a process, so we need to give them time to get their bids in order. That could be 60 days, but
Progress.
well, it is because, even though I say, he said it should be wrapped up in 2 weeks. I know we're all antsy about it. The fact that we were going to lose that grant and then we didn't know where the project stood at all, and we would have had to regroup and decide what to do. I think it is a pretty good result, even though still sitting tight, but we will update you at the next meeting, April 18th. And then sewer line replacement, Hershey's Mill Estates, everybody knows it's pretty much substantially completed. We're just kind of waiting for the grass to grow in, and that should be commencing shortly. I know mine has, so.
Yeah, good. Good.
So we probably could take that off at some point soon.
Good.
Yep.
How about the pocket park down in Milltown?
So we did get equipment as far as the price. So that's should be around 13 to 14 grand. We have Nate getting us a proposal for probably the April 18th meeting for the board to approve the initial surveying and engineering of everything we're talking about. So after that happens, they can go do their thing with the surveying and engineering of the site. And I think we have a pretty good game plan. I mean, we have the equipment we can put on this year, and then depending on Public Works schedule, we'll have to talk to Mark about when he wants to integrate the trails in there at some point, but it's moving along more than it was a couple months ago.
Great. My question is on the equipment. My understanding is that it's in stock and it was ordered to be sold to someone who turned it down.
That's the only reason we got it so cheap. Yeah.
Yes.
We're,
Do we need to move quickly on it?
I will ask that question, Jason. It didn't seem like he was very urgent with it. But,
Well, I hate to see
Understood.
it sold out from under us.
well, no, it's a good point because then we'll be paying double that.
Yep.
So,
So maybe we have a hold on it or something. That'd be good to find out. If we
Yeah.
put a deposit on something, something that will,
Something.
It's already budgeted for,
Should-
so we might as well
Should
just.
be in our next meeting.
Sure.
Yeah.
yeah, that's a good one, John.
Thank you.
I also want to thank John and Michelle, Michelle knocked on doors and John's been a leader down there. And thanks to Jason and the staff for all that. So.
Yeah, very good.
I still maintain we need some kind of chipping and putting area down there.
Yeah.
Well, you could get that. You could get that.
Throwing it out there.
It's a really great idea.
Any other matters?
I just want to bring to everyone's attention who may be listening and hopefully interested to participate that April 22nd is Keep East Goshen Beautiful Day. It's an opportunity to get out, at least in your immediate vicinity, in your neighborhoods, and some of your connector roads, and collect some roadside litter, which is always there. But it usually shows itself very well after the volunteers pick up on that day. So if you can, come on out and bend your back, pick up a few pieces of litter and feel good about it.
Also the Sustainability Expo, right? Sustainability Expo coming up.
Same day?
Yeah, no, it's the
No,
15th,
15th, April 15th.
the week before the
Yep,
15th.
April 15th.
And
1 o'clock.
on the on Keep East Goshen Beautiful Day, we're gonna do a tree planting and make the proclamation that we are striving for Tree City status with that planting effort. And Conservancy had a really very successful watershed lecture event last week. It was really very informative.
Okay, public comment. Is there any public comment in the room?
David, did you want to say something?
I'm sorry. In the room or on Zoom?
Mr. Chairman, to conclude the fastest meeting you've ever chaired over, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Missed it by a minute, but not bad, Mr. Chair.
Well,
Good night.
I think we'll give it to 'em.
Now that we have a digital clock.